You know, we're very fortunate, especially given the fact that we have been in the midst of a global pandemic. To see Utah end 2020 with positive absorption is a real indication of strength for our market. You know, Salt Lake Valley, saw, just under 600,000 square feet of positive absorption, and Utah County just under 400,000 square feet. Although that's down from the previous years, the fact that we've seen continued dynamic absorption in the face of a market that has been paralyzed to a degree is really encouraging. We've been fortunate to see single-digit vacancy, even with record positive absorption year over year. Well, this past year, we popped up to double-digit vacancy. Yeah, downtown direct vacancy has risen above 12%. There are some large blocks. A lot of that is oriented toward the Class A segment. The suburban market has actually remained stronger, which is no surprise. The majority of the absorption has always been historically in the suburban market over the last 2 decades. That being said, I think what we're witnessing is some reasonable equilibrium between both the Salt Lake, downtown, and suburban market. You see different users gravitating to each market depending on their sensitivity. We're seeing record construction, and with that new construction, almost half of it is pre-leased and pre-committed. I mean, some of the largest office developments and frankly lease transactions in the history of Utah have been consummated even in the midst of this pandemic this last year. One of the challenges we've observed over this last year is the rise of sublease vacancy. With over 1.2 million square feet hitting the market, it's something that needs to be absorbed, and it is a factor. That being said, lease rates have still remained somewhat stable and constant, even with the new addition of sublease vacancy. Most of that is oriented in the suburbs, and we're seeing on a month-to-month basis that space being absorbed, although it's a painful process to see that space really addressed in a productive way. I think we're going to continue to see the majority of the absorption centered in the Point of the Mountain submarket area, which is really that submarket comprised of the North Utah County and South Salt Lake County market and the convergence of the 2 most populous areas along the Wasatch Front. That area, which often is referred to as Silicon Slopes, will not only command, I think, absorption in the future, but probably see most of the activity as far as new headquarter and relocation. That said, we are encouraged by the diversity across the market from downtown Salt Lake to really other projects that are emerging. You look at central Utah County, both downtown Provo in their central business district with Freedom Commons, kind of redefining that skyline, and also University Place in Orem will, I think, help swing the pendulum back to more central Utah County over the course of the next 12 to 18 months as that new product, which brings online speculative Class A office space in locations that haven't seen that kind of activity, will, I think, spur growth and a lot of the momentum. Downtown Salt Lake will also, with the advent and the completion of 95 State, see continued interest and, I think, momentum from those users that gravitate toward the central business district. You also see opportunity zone related projects coming into their own. Projects that have prioritized renewable energy, like Soleil Technology Park that has recently brought online over 200,000 square feet in West Valley City, that will, I think, redefine the way developers address the market and demands for more sustainable practices within their development planning. Cap rates have remained stable. In fact, in some cases, in some isolated cases, cap rates have actually dropped, and we've seen some record-breaking transactions. Institutional players are looking at Utah more than ever before as a safe haven, as one of the ideal secondary markets to really invest in. And as a result, that capital investment that we're seeing from outside parties coming into Utah, major institutional players, I think will continue to drive cap rates potentially down slightly, or at least allow us to stabilize our investment community that much further.
Generally speaking, I think that developers are not completely sure where that's going. I would probably more focus on their customers, which tend to be tenants. We know today that developers are putting a lot more time and effort into making sure that their tenants, those that come to the building as well as those that are in the building, feel safe. And that right now requires a lower percentage of occupancy. It can require some social distancing, good signage relative to mask wearing and things like that, and how many people we're putting on the elevator, possibly different filtration systems, which will continue to develop in time. And overall, right now, just a general communication that they know what the issues are associated to a well building and a safe building. And I think that's probably as far as the development community has gone. But if you look on the tenant side, which is really their customers, the demand for their product, they seem to be focused more on, 4 primary things. Usually the real estate director is under the purview of somebody in the C-suite, might be a CFO, might be a CEO. They're typically at that level looking at talent, employment. And I think that is really a key element moving forward. And I think we've already really proved ourselves as a community that we have that. And if other people's neighborhoods are like mine, most of the people that are moving into my neighborhood right now tend to be from the coastal states, California, other places, and taking advantage of an opportunity to maybe work wherever they want. I think that's great validation of what we are as a community. But it's just once the companies have really vetted out the talent, then they're looking at occupancy. They're looking at location, and they're really looking at design. And I think those are the things that we have a little bit better understanding of, and ultimately will require the development community to respond to. I think we've been talking about that for the last 10 years. Utah has been a shining star, as it relates to, lifestyle, employment. And we're not the only ones. Colorado, our neighbor next door, is doing very well for that reason also. I think we're a well-run state. I think the transportation is spectacular for the size of state that we are. And I think generally we have people that are well-educated and have a desire to excel. All of those things come together to make for a great employee. And then on top of that, you look at the immigration that is occurring because of just the quality of life that we enjoy. And I don't think any of those things have changed during COVID. Actually, in a lot of ways now that people have been given the opportunity to work wherever they choose, they are making the decision to come here, which is just a huge validation for our lifestyle.
So about 30% of our interest right now in the marketplace is out of market companies looking to relocate here. And besides being that great business environment that we've always talked about, highly educated, young workforce, very committed, very resourceful workforce as a whole, that's something that we've talked about pre-COVID. But today, really, our business environment is perfectly situated for post-COVID workforce. So you've got evenly distributed workforce. You've got these large office buildings that are easy to get in and out of that aren't, high-rise office buildings. You don't have as many concerns about HVAC and stacking employees on top of one another. And then you have the business environment as a whole that's really been stoked by the business community. The leadership in the state has been fantastic at focusing on really what do we do to help businesses be successful. And so we see that as, we've always been a catcher's mitt for that sort of business, but we see that, like you said, even more so today as a post-COVID environment.
The state of healthcare innovation in Utah and Salt Lake City is in a really great spot. Never before have we seen so much growth. This industry anchors Utah because of its high wages. It anchors Utah because it has wet labs. You need space to operate in this industry. What we've done is we've looked at life sciences, but also combined digital health in that as well, because we see an overlap. And with those two combined, it's a really strong technology sector. And it goes from Logan to Salt Lake City, down to Provo, and all the way down to St. George and everything in between. It's a really robust industry. Never before in Salt Lake City has there been such a focus on a specific industry. With healthcare innovation, we're taking digital health and all the elements of life sciences, from diagnostics and therapeutics and medical device manufacturing. We're combining them and we're focusing on the future. We have a great history. There's so much that's been done already, but right now there's this inflection point. This industry and these sub-industries within it have high growth. They've got stable jobs from kind of entry level all the way up to PhD level. So the talent that's needed for these is an important aspect of this industry. We see a really great opportunity within the city to take our values and the things that we see might need to be filled as gaps and focus on working with industry partners and these companies to find cohesion. So what we're working on right now is a large master plan, a strategy that's going to knock out all of these different elements within the industry. And it's all through public-private partnerships. So we see workforce development, diversity, and inclusion as really important components to the city. We want to see all of our residents across the city engage with this industry because we know what it does individually for these people and what it can do to unlock the full economic potential for the city. On an economic development standpoint, there's a reason why Mayor Mendenhall has a robust strategy focused on Tech Lake City, is what we're calling it. And the first thing we're focusing on is healthcare innovation. So we're open to working with all types of technology coming into the city and finding a place, but we're being very intentional with healthcare innovation. We see a real opportunity to point to a designated area within the city, a corridor, and to see growth specifically happen intentionally in that area. We welcome growth in other parts, but we know that there's a really key component of bumpability for the factors that you get in a downtown setting that you can't get in other places. We recognize that there's going to be companies that have a better fit outside of the city. We want to make sure that the companies that see the value in what a downtown operation looks like, coupled with other companies around them, with the amenities that come with a robust downtown culture. And we think that focusing on this industry and making sure that people recognize within the state and within the city and outside of it have a place to come and grow and be a part of what we have to offer.
I'll start with just saying the resilience is a word that I would put to Utah over this last year as just what a great tough year to show the resilience of Utah, of the business community, of the leadership here. I mean, it's been really amazing to be a part of that over the last year. I mean, it has been a difficult 2020, and we've seen that in a bunch of different ways. I mean, 2 million square feet of sublease hitting the market over the last 9 months is absolutely a record and a difficult one to overcome for landlords and for tenants. And then another 1 million square feet of tenancy that just wasn't renewed. wasn't leased elsewhere, just companies that said, you know, for now, we're just going to be work from home until we can figure this out. And seeing the response of business leaders and the workforce in general has just been amazing to watch. And I'm just glad to be a part of that community. Those difficult decisions that were made to put space on the market, to not renew leases, we've seen that balanced in 2021 with just a ton of optimism. We've seen more lease documents being traded hands, more tours being taken in just this first about 3.5 weeks of January than the entire second half of 2020. So we see a lot of optimism out there in the marketplace right now, and of course that's being led by a great rollout of the coronavirus vaccine. Some companies and people feeling like we're getting close to that, you know, herd immunity idea. And just as we continue to move forward, seeing just a lot of optimism around that, sort of looking past COVID to what does our business look like and what does real estate look like for that business going forward. But you know, life sciences and healthcare, they didn't miss a beat. I mean, they made lots of commitments going all the way back to 2019 and before. You look at like a Myriad and ARUP, you know, companies like that that are delivering large blocks of space in 2020 and in 2021. Those spaces can't be largely occupied right now, but there is a lot of expectation of, hey, we're going to continue to grow, we're going to continue to hire, we're going to continue to do more business. And those companies are continuing to lead, not just here in the state, but across the nation in many different ways, in health sciences, in life sciences. And you know, tech is the easy sort of softball to say that tech here in the state of Utah has just continued to grow. We've continued to get fantastic funding amounts. We've continued to have more and more companies that are, you know, in that unicorn, time frame in their business, and it's just great to see so much continued growth. You know, Divvy is a client. Watching them respond to such adversity in the middle of a business environment that's really difficult has been great to just watch their response and their continued growth as a response. It's been great. Again, Utah is just a great place to do business, and we see that over and over again just in all of these different ways that we've been talking about. This business environment, this outdoors opportunity, the ability to get here quickly, our great renovation of the international airport, access to the coastline, to those California companies that are saying, hey, I want to still be able to have access to employees there and here. So as a secondary office and as a primary office, really headquarters location for the state of Utah. We see all of those as just continuing to sort of give us this platform for success in the state of Utah. And I can't honestly see it slowing down. We do have the challenges that COVID has provided around those subleases, around delivery challenges, and those will largely be taken care of over 2021 and 2022. We see a real resurgence in 22, 23. So we're looking at, just trying to stay the course, really get back into the office, see what that means over the 2021, especially in the second half of this year. And it's off to the races again, I think, in 22, 23.
Again, I think landlords are trying to dig into how the fundamental switch between what we have known in the past, which was evolving to a very high density kind of use, a lot of money put into amenities, but all of that is primarily a function of trying to attract the right kind of talent, building cachet as a company, trying to culturally develop your people around the values of that company. Those kinds of things, I think, are really the same as they were before COVID. What is different now is the way that companies will essentially design their space. I think what has changed now is that we're seeing companies that are starting to see the value of kind of a combination of in the office and work from home. About 69% of those that have been polled would prefer to have some sort of a hybrid. And that's going to filter down to the way we occupy buildings. It's going to filter down to the way that developers look at their offering to tenants and how to accommodate that in a little bit better way. I think this next probably 2 quarters is going to be a little bit slower than what we're used to, and definitely is going to start to create some more momentum by the end of the year. I think what's exciting about Utah, and particularly as it relates to office space, is this new concept of location. We've always sold the destination of Utah as the place where people should come and work. But in a very real way, this COVID environment has really opened doors for people to start to work in a different way. And I think Utah is perfectly suited for that. Whether it's a hub and spoke kind of setup, whether it's the way that somebody uses their office space as a destination versus as a way to meet, all of those things are very, very easily accommodated in Utah. And I think that our labor force has always spoke for itself, but I think also our innovation. Developers right now are looking at the landscape, and some local developers are taking a few of the chips off the table, taking a little bit of a sacrifice on yield. We've seen probably about a 250 basis point sort of differential right now for the unknown of COVID as it relates to the sale of office buildings. But overall, everyone is convinced that office buildings have a future. And I think that as we start to figure out how they accommodate the occupancy moving forward, I think that it's going to be an exciting time. And I could very well see that once we get through some of the challenges associated with COVID, that there could be a real pent-up demand. And I think the innovation is just going to be exciting, and I think that we're at the forefront of all that being here in Utah.
Yeah, I think it's just specifically when employees and the workforce feel safe to do so, right? So we've already seen it starting, especially in smaller companies. And I hate to even say this on camera, but I will, and I think it's an important component. There are some companies in our state who are already looking at that. Hey, we've reached herd immunity within this little 10, 20, 30 employee company, and so we're safe to all come back to work. We're safe to not wear masks in the office. And that is highly positive from my perspective. It's also concerning for someone who doesn't quite feel safe to go into that environment, like myself. I put on a mask, I walk into those environments and don't quite feel safe to be back to it. And I think that's the case for larger companies. So, if you're over 100 employees, you're looking at a 10, maybe 15 or 20% occupancy right now, and you're spreading those people out over days. You have 20 or 30 people on a floor where you could fit 200 in post-COVID or pre-COVID environments. And I think as we go forward, we'll see that continuing to grow in a really measured and safe way. And I think mid-year we're going to see sort of a turning point where we start to look around and say, hey, I think we've gotten close to herd immunity. As long as the vaccines continue to come out, and as long as 260,000 vaccines have been already given at this point in the state of Utah, that's a fantastic number. I mean, that's something to really get excited about in the state. And as those continue to roll out, I think we'll continue to feel more safe, to be in this environment, and to be back in that sort of collaborative, enjoyable community environment inside our offices. So I see that happening, mid-year and beyond. By the end of the year, I see, a good portion of people coming back. But I don't think it's the answer to say, hey, we're just going to go back to pre-COVID. I think this work from home environment was really eye-opening for a lot of people. Their ability to have choice, to really decide as part of the workforce, well, what tasks do I do better at home at 8:30 at night when my kids are asleep and the dogs are in bed and all those things, versus where can I take a Zoom call at 11 o'clock in the morning? Well, I can't really do that at home because I've got 2 dogs that are barking in the background. I've got a garbage truck driving by and making noises. I've got all these other things. So there's going to be a lot of choice that I think we're going to work through as a workforce and as this great partnership with ownership and companies to say, I think we need more choice than we had before in pre-COVID, but I think we also need that environment of the community. We need collaboration. We need to be able to be together. Just as humans, we sort of crave that discussion. And I do think that collaboration and community are the things that are going to bring us together in the second half of the year.
We're living in strange times, and this market has never seen a global pandemic, or really the impact that pandemic has had on our office space and the utilization of that space. Companies are going to be reprioritizing the way they look at office space and their workspace environments more than ever before, and parking ratios are inevitably going to be one of those factors that will be impacted as density and the approach to employee density ends up shifting as a result of sensitivity in the future. Density, configuring space in an effective manner, and also being able to create the right type of environment where employees can thrive, where they feel safe, where recruitment and retention can be strengthened, will be key factors in the future. And I think office developers and large corporate users will be keeping a close eye on those trends as we move forward and hopefully forge through a recovery in the months to come. I think Utah is poised for a renaissance. I think Utah will be a preferred location as large corporate occupiers and investors identify really the ideal setting to not only relocate, but also address the future of their office culture and their planning. Large corporate users that we are working with and representing on a national basis are looking to a more decentralized, distributed approach to their office requirements like never before. And Utah stands to, I think, be a beneficiary and a key market for expansion and relocation in the months and years to come. How we respond to that demand and our ability to provide product, to be quick and nimble in a quickly changing environment will be, I think, the key to success. And I think Utah, as never before, is poised for success and to be a leader, not only nationally, but globally. We've always been known as the crossroads of the West, but I truly believe that we are positioned to be the crossroads of the world and have all of the pieces in order to make that happen.